Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Saya buka Executive Education for Young Political Leaders Angkatan ke-13. Terima kasih atas perhatiannya. Semoga Allah selalu melindungi kita untuk melanjutkan perjuangan kepada bangsa, negara yang kita cintai. Terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih Bapak Lodwig atas opening speech-nya. Mohon untuk tetap di depan Pak untuk melakukan pemukulan gong digital bersama-sama. Pemukulan gong digital sebagai simbolis dibukanya rangkaian pelatihan Young Political Leaders Angkatan ke-13. Untuk menemani Pak Lodwig, kami juga mengundang seluruh Dewan Pengurus maju ke depan untuk memukul gong secara bersama. Baiklah, mari kita hitung bersama-sama sampai 4 ya. 1, 2, 3, 4. Dengan ini, acara Executive Education Program for Young Political Leaders Angkatan ke-13 resmi dibuka. Terima kasih Bapak-Bapak dan Ibu. Silahkan untuk duduk kembali. Mohon izinkan kami men-setting stage sebentar. Public lecture. Terima kasih kepada Bapak Lodwig atas waktunya. Pada kesempatan ini saya juga ingin menginformasikan bahwa Golkar Institute sebentar lagi akan memiliki aplikasi Train Golkar, pengganti dari GI Training Apps. Kita dapat mengaksesnya lewat Play Store, App Store, dan juga via website. Dapatkan akses ke puluhan video-video pembelajaran mulai dari tema politik, ekonomi maupun kepemimpinan dari para narasumber yang terkemuka baik nasional maupun internasional. Baiklah, kita akhirnya masuk ke dalam inti kegiatan hari ini, yaitu public lecture dengan tema Good Governance for Golden Indonesia 2045. Untuk itu, kami mengundang yang terhormat Bapak Mulya Amri untuk memandu jalannya diskusi pada siang hari ini.
Terima kasih Mas Rifki. Teman-teman semua, selamat siang. Sudah semangat untuk memasuki sesi pertama dari program pelatihan kita ya? Sudah semangat? Sudah siap? Saya mau dengar yel-yel Golkar Institute. Golkar Institute, maju, bertransformasi. Ya, tepuk tangan dulu boleh dong ya? Makasih. Teman-teman semua, pembicara kita kali ini saya akan perkenalkan dalam bahasa Indonesia. Lalu kemudian beliau akan melanjutkan dalam ceramahnya dalam bahasa Inggris. Dan nanti dalam tanya jawabnya, silakan teman-teman kalau mau bertanya dalam bahasa Inggris boleh, dalam bahasa Indonesia boleh, nanti saya akan perkenalkan. Pembicara kita adalah Associate Professor Eduardo Araral. Beliau adalah profesor di Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, itu adalah sebuah sekolah independen di National University of Singapore di Singapura. Dan keahlian beliau adalah public policy, mendapatkan PhD-nya dari Indiana University Bloomington dengan beasiswa dari Fulbright, dan beliau ini adalah bimbingan dari penerima hadiah Nobel Ekonomi pertama yang perempuan. Jadi yang sudah almarhumah Elinor Ostrom waktu itu adalah penerima hadiah Nobel Ekonomi yang pertama yang perempuan, ini adalah supervisornya beliau. Dan Eduardo was my supervisor, ya supervisor saya waktu saya PhD di Lee Kuan Yew School dulu. Jadi Eduardo spesialisasinya adalah tentang institusi, tentang kelembagaan. Dan tentunya dalam kelembagaan adalah ada aspek tentang administrasi publik, tentang birokrasi. Kelembagaan adalah bagaimana sesuatu hal dikerjakan, bagaimana kita percaya tentang sesuatu, bagaimana hal-hal yang sehari-hari kita lakukan itu berpengaruh terhadap output dari pekerjaan kita. Nah, beliau adalah ahli dari kelembagaan dan juga collective action. Collective action itu mungkin bisa kita sebutkan sebagai tindakan bersama. Kalau ada beberapa orang perlu kerja bareng, tapi mereka tidak wajib kerja bareng, nah bagaimana bisa bikin mereka bekerja sama. Ini adalah studi tentang kerjasama, ini ternyata studi yang tidak mudah ya, karena seringkali kalau tidak ada yang merintah untuk kerjasama, itu orang nggak mau kerjasama. Tapi seringkali kita untuk menyelesaikan satu masalah, antar kementerian, antar departemen, nah ini seringkali bagaimana caranya mewujudkan orang untuk mau bekerja sama. Nah, Profesor Eduardo Araral ini sebagai seorang akademisi juga sangat mumpuni. Dia diakui sebagai top 2% atau 2% tertinggi most cited scholars worldwide. Jadi tulisan-tulisan beliau itu dalam top 2% yang dikutip di jurnal-jurnal. Ini menurut Stanford University. Jadi luar biasa sekali. Pemikiran-pemikiran udah dikutip di mana-mana, dan Prof. Ed ini selain sebagai akademisi juga banyak membagi ilmunya dalam konteks-konteks di luar akademik yang murni akademik. Beliau banyak menjadi konsultan dan advisor untuk berbagai proyek. Sudah pernah di Indonesia, di Filipina, Brunei, Vietnam, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Uni Emirat Arab, Myanmar, dan sekarang lagi sangat sering rajin bolak-balik ke Saudi Arabia. Karena Saudi Arabia sedang membangun sekolah kepemimpinan untuk regenerasi birokrasi di sana. Dan kita ingin mempelajari tentunya apa yang bisa dipelajari bagi Indonesia. Kita sudah tahu bahwa kondisi administrasi publik, kondisi birokrasi di kita, ini banyak hal yang masih menjadi PR dan kita harapkan tentunya untuk bisa mencapai Indonesia Emas tersebut, salah satu mesinnya yaitu adalah administrasi publik kita harus mumpuni. Nah, kita bisa belajar tentang bagaimana kita bisa memastikan Indonesia punya administrasi publik yang lebih baik untuk mencapai Indonesia Emas tersebut. Untuk berikutnya saya akan berikan kesempatan kepada beliau untuk memberikan public lecture tersebut yang akan diberikan dalam bahasa Inggris. Jadi teman-teman silakan untuk menyimak dan saya undang untuk memberikan aplaus yang sangat meriah untuk Profesor Eduardo. Please. Pak Eduardo, please.
Thank you very much Muli. Assalamualaikum. Salamat siang. Okay. That's all I know about my Indonesian. I'm not new to Indonesia. I have been to Indonesia, I think 7 times. Traveled back and forth. I was born in Mindanao, Philippines, not far from Manado. And I understand many words in Indonesian. Right? Many words. I cannot speak fluently, but I can, if I listen, I can understand. I will survive Jakarta without, and thank you very much, Muli, and for the Golkar Institute leadership for the invitation. I'm very happy that Golkar Institute is now very strong. I was at the start when they were building the Golkar Institute. I was part of the team that planned for the institute 3 years ago online. So I'm very happy to see that you are now on the 13th batch. What I will talk to you about today is minutes, I will show some statistics and numbers, but we'll talk about good governance for Golden Indonesia 2045, or Indonesia 4.0, or how Indonesia will break the middle income trap, or how will Indonesia become the number 5 economy in the world. Right now it's number 16. How will Indonesia become number 5 economy in the world in 20 years? Only 20 years. Okay? I don't know the answer, but I have gone to many countries around the world. They ask the same question. And Muli mentioned some countries I have visited and I also go to. From North Korea to China, to India, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Myanmar, and now Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia also wants to grow its economy, diversify its economy, and pretty much what Indonesia wants to do, Saudi Arabia also wants to do. Reform the economy, reform society, reform bureaucracy. And I've been to Saudi Arabia 9 times. The last one was 3 weeks ago in Jeddah. At the Lee Kuan Yew School, I've been with the school for 18 years, 1/8. I'm the second oldest faculty at the Lee Kuan Yew School, second oldest. In 2 years' time, I will be the oldest, not by age, but by seniority in the school. So I would be happy to discuss my own experience firsthand, not theory, not textbook, but my own actual experience in advising governments in these countries. And in addition, of course, I've also been to Vietnam 41 times. And you can see Vietnam is a very close competitor of Indonesia and a close ally also. And the Philippines, I'm coming from the Philippines. So I can speak about good examples, not so good examples, relevant examples about Indonesia. So I will only speak for about 1 hour, and then the 1 hour we open for this discussion. And you please prepare the most difficult question for me. I'm ready, I'm prepared, I look forward to, and I'm going to see and test how smart this group is by the quality of the questions that you ask. Okay, so ready? Okay, please fasten your seatbelt. All right. Okay, I want you to spend a few minutes to take a look at this chart. This is the story, my whole story. So this chart is the real GDP, sorry. Okay, I need to fix the, okay, there one, thank you. This is the real GDP per capita of these countries, including Indonesia. So we can see how Indonesia compares with all of these countries. GDP per capita, income per person. Real, it's a net of inflation. You remove inflation, okay? As of 2020, okay? So not surprising. Not surprising. The small red. So this is from the last 30 years, yeah? Last 30 years, 1990 until 2020. I show this to you so that you can imagine yourself what can Indonesia do in 20 years. Whether you can meet the target of Indonesia 4.0 or Indonesia Vision 2045, or whether you can become number 5 economy in the world in 20 years. What does it mean? What does it mean for good governance? What does it mean for bureaucratic reform? What does it mean for you as a young political leader? What does it mean for Gold Card? Okay, that is those are the questions I would like you to think. Now, take a look at this. So, very small Singapore went very quickly, but Singapore is too small. The population of Singapore, the native Singaporean is only 3.3 million. That's how Singapore small is. That the other 2 million are foreigners, like me. So Singapore is not really exceptional in that sense because it's a very small country, and small country would grow very fast. Now, let's take a look. So the per capita income now of Singapore is around 125 million US dollars by converted to purchasing power parity. The strength of your purchasing power, okay? So Singapore is at the top, not surprised. Then we look at the next one would be Taiwan. Okay, so Taiwan, 25 million people, one small island, just north of the Philippines, south of China, mostly mountainous. But if you think about Taiwan, everything that we use here is produced or invented in Taiwan. All the chips that we use, all the chips, your Samsung and your Apple, produced by Taiwan. Okay? And computers and everything. So how can a small island, small population, it was only established in 1949 when the Kuomintang, the Republican Chinese, were defeated in mainland China. They moved to Taiwan. So Taiwan is as young as Indonesia, right, in terms of age. And they don't have much natural resources. No oil, no gas, no forestry, no fisheries. Only chips, electronics. And yet, they are the second richest country in Asia, in these countries. Third one would be, this one is South Korea. Okay, I think everybody knows South Korea, BTS, Samsung, Hyundai, LG, right? Everybody knows South Korea. 70 years ago, South Korea is the poorest country, not only in Asia, but in the world. One of the poorest countries. They just finished they went to war with North Korea. Devastated. The whole country was devastated. If you look at the height of the older generation of South Koreans, the height, they don't go beyond 5 feet tall. 5 feet tall. Very small. Why? No food. Malnutrition, poverty. Okay? Today, you look at the average South Korean, they would be 5'7", 5'10", and very tall, right? And they are famous in the world. So what did South Korea do? In that 50 or 60 years time, how did they become a rich country from a very, very poor country? Without natural resources, no oil, no gas, no fisheries, no forestry. The land in South Korea is very small. The best food that they can offer is just kimchi. No match to Indonesian food. Indonesian food is very rich, very diverse. You have so many sources. You go to South Korean restaurant, what do they offer you? Kimchi and chicken. That's it. Right? And yet, everybody watch BTS and South Korean movies. What was that blockbuster, very popular Netflix movie? Squid Game. Squid Game. That's and then of course before that 10 years ago you have this dancing. What's his name? Oh, Gangnam Style. So how come suddenly South Korea is very famous for this? It did not come by surprise. It was designed by the government. It was planned by the government that they will export cultural power, soft talent, as an export item of South Korea. So they don't just export cars, they don't just export computer, they don't just export other goods or kimchi, but now South Korea is a world power in terms of exporting its talent. And the government played a crucial role in this. The government played a crucial role in making Indonesia #1 in Samsung. Now they're producing nuclear power. They just built the nuclear power in Abu Dhabi. And pretty soon they will be building a nuclear power in Saudi Arabia. So can Indonesia produce its own nuclear power in so short period of time? Can Indonesia produce its own Samsung in 20 years' time? Can Indonesia produce its own Hyundai or LG or these big cars. So those are the questions I pose to you now. Okay? Now, so that is South Korea. But South Korea today is slowing down. Its population is getting old. South Koreans don't get married, and if they get married, they don't have children. If they have children, it's less than 2. They just have 1. So they only have, I think their birth rate is less than 1. You need 2.1 in order to replicate your society. But with less than 1, that means your society is getting older and older and older. Okay? Okay, and then Indonesia is still young. Your median age is 28. But by 2035, that number will switch. Indonesia will start getting older. And when you get old, less people to work and more people to support. So that would be the challenge. So you need to move faster than 2045. Otherwise, the time clock is ticking. So your window actually is very small. It's not 20 years. It's probably 15 or 10. So the question is, 10 years. What can we do in 10 years? 10 years fly very fast, right? We lost 3 years with COVID already. Okay? So that is South Korea. And today, South Korean economy is struggling. A lot of young people don't have jobs. If they have jobs, it is below what they trained in university. And a lot of them are very unhappy because you study very hard to go to university. You want to work as engineer. After that, you cannot find a job. And then you flip burger. You go to McDonald's. After a few years, you feel bad because you work hard for university and then you drive Gojek or Grab or flip burger. And then they lose hope. Okay? So the growth story of South Korea can turn around. It can go flat and can go backfire. Now, I'm only showing you countries from Asia. But if I mention to you that the country, don't cry for me, Argentina. Argentina used to be one of the top economies in the world. Number 5 economy in the world in the 1930s, 1920s, 1930s. Okay? Today, nobody talks much about Argentina. All right? So, it went up, it went down, it went up, it went down, it went up. So, that could also happen to Indonesia. Your growth is not guaranteed to go steady. You can go up now, pretty soon, tomorrow you can go down. Or you can continue to go up. Okay? So, let me move on to Japan. Oh, you realize South Korea, Japan, and Singapore is actually, they are richer compared to Japan in terms of GDP per capita. We all like Japan. We all like Japanese food. We like Toyota, Mitsubishi, and we like Japanese electronics. We like manga and all that stuff. But the Japanese economy is now slowing down. It's very old economy, very old. Their birth rate is less than 1. That means in 30 years' time, or maybe 20 years' time, the economy or the population of Japan will shrink. Today, it's 120 million. If they don't reproduce, they will become 90 million in 30 years' time. So that means the economy, the workforce is slowing, and there will be more people who will be supported. That's why I know Indonesians are now also going to study and work in Japan because Japan really needs the workforce from Southeast Asia. And South Korea is also doing that. And Taiwan is also trying to get your skilled workers. Okay? So while you try to grow your economy, your best people, skilled workers, will be encouraged to go to Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, Taiwan, and so on. So you are competing for this pool of talent, limited pool of talent. How do you keep them in Indonesia? How do you keep them happy? You pay higher wages. If you pay higher wages, inflation goes up. If you don't pay higher wages, then they move out. And then you become like the Philippines. Your main export would be your labor. Okay? So that is Japan. Now, before I go to the bottom, Southeast Asia, what we mean by upper middle income and upper middle countries, these are the upper middle countries, middle income countries. Below or above 40,000, these are the upper ones. These ones are in the middle income. And they're not growing very fast, therefore they are trapped in that middle income. Trapped. For many years they are trapped. They cannot break away from 20,000 or 40,000. So when we say middle income trap, MIT, that means the economy is growing, but it's not growing very fast. Okay? Not faster like Singapore or Taiwan. You are trapped in the middle because, one, you are not as innovative as South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, or Singapore. Your innovation is very low. And your salaries are already very high. Okay? So take the case of Malaysia. They have innovation, but not as great as Japan, South Korea, or Taiwan. And the wages are high compared to, say, Indonesia and Philippines and Vietnam. So lack of innovation, high wages. So it's not sustainable, right? Because businesses cannot survive if you pay high wages and then lack of innovation. So the question now is, how do you improve productivity? How do you introduce innovation in the economy? And every country here, including Indonesia, China, Thailand, Malaysia, and Vietnam, they're all struggling how to break the middle income trap. How to increase their GDP per capita to about 40,000 in a short period of time. And it is not easy. So the next question now, so this is Indonesia. You're just slightly below China. So China has now overtaken you, Thailand. So Indonesia is the largest economy in Southeast Asia. But if you divide your GDP by the number of Indonesians, then it goes down to this about number. Philippines is and Vietnam are just catching up. And pretty soon Vietnam will overtake the Philippines, maybe overtake Indonesia, and maybe eventually catch Thailand. I know Vietnam very well. I have been there 41 times. That's too much already. And I have advised their governments. I have 1,000 students in Vietnam. They asked me how to break this middle income trap. And today, this year, finally, Indonesia is now launching its own electric car. It's called VinFast. Okay? 30 years, 40 years ago, Vietnam is one of the poorest countries in Asia or in the world. As poor as South Korea. Because they also went through 30 years of war. Okay? The Vietnamese people are very different. They defeated the Americans. The only country can defeat American, the Vietnamese. They defeated the French. It's a French colony for 100 years. They defeated the French. They also fight with the Chinese. They don't back down. Okay? So the Vietnamese people are very different. So you can see how dynamic they are. You can see that they are so focused on GDP growth. Everybody focused. Every politician. The president of the country, the prime minister of Vietnam, his main KPI to survive in the job is if your GDP has to be above 6%. It has to be 6, 7, 8, 9%. Below that, you lose your job. Right? That's how obsessive Vietnam is. Similar to China. Everybody focused in their GDP. Okay? Now, let's quickly talk about Malaysia. Okay. Malaysia, similar to Indonesia, except that their population is only 30 million. But they're also rich in natural resources, right? Oil and gas, Petronas, all that stuff. They have manufacturing. But they are stuck. They're stuck. And Malaysia is now facing some challenges. I think they have 5 prime ministers in 5 years. Every year there's always a new prime minister. There's no political stability. In that sense, Indonesia is lucky because your one president can stay for 10 years and have long-term view, right? So unlike Malaysia, Every year they change prime minister. Thailand, the same. Thailand prime minister, they quickly come and go. But Japan also, the prime minister also come and go, and yet they can grow. Why? Because the Japanese civil service is the one that runs the country. Politicians come and go. Nobody knows who is the politician. But it's really the civil service who runs the country. Okay? So that says a very good professional civil service is key. And all of this, Singapore, Taiwan, South Korea, Japan, they have very good, high quality civil service. Okay? Highly paid, highly selective, professional. Of course, civil servants in Singapore are the highest paid. The Prime Minister of Singapore gets 4 times, actually 5 times the salary of President Biden. 5 times the salary of the United States of America. Okay? And Japan is also run by very elite bureaucracy. They graduate only from 3 or 4 universities, and then they run the country. Similar to South Korea, they only graduate of 3 major universities: Seoul National University, and forgot the other one, Yonsei University. Okay, so these are all elite-driven civil service. Now going to China. So you can see China's economy is growing because it's so huge, 1.3 trillion people. But now China's economy has slowed down. It used to grow about 8 or 9% for about 35 years. Okay? Imagine that. You grow 8% for 35 years. If you understand math or statistics, every 7 years, if you grow 7% every 7 years, that means your economy doubles. Okay? Every 7 years, your economy doubles. On the 14th year, your economy already will be 4 times the original economy. And on the 21st year, your economy would be much, much bigger than. Right? So what I'm trying to say is, for Indonesia to achieve its Indonesia 4.0 and to become number 5 in the economy, in the world, Indonesia has to grow at the very least average of 7% for 20 years. 7-8%. Okay? And that is not impossible. It's difficult, it's challenging. Because currently, the best performing growth of Indonesia in the last 20 years will probably maximum of 5%. There's about 5%, right? 5% during the best of times. Okay, remove the COVID effect. But that practically means you have to improve your economy 1.5 or 1.6 times every year on year, for 22 years straight. Okay? And you don't suffer from the ups and downs of the economy, because this is your last window. If you don't do it, then your demographic challenge will come. Then the Indonesian population will get old. Then your labor force will get shrink, and then more and more people needed to be supported, and then probably that will be. So what I'm trying to say, this is your golden window. This is your last chance to make it. If you don't make it, you'll probably become a normal country with 4% growth, high poverty. It's okay, but it's still okay. But you're not reaching your potential. Your potential is you can become the number 5 economy in the world. Your economy can grow to 7 trillion. That is your potential. Okay? Right now it's 1.3. So you can imagine 1.3 and you want to hit 7 trillion. Wow, what does Indonesia need to do? Double and triple investment, double your infrastructure investment, train all young Indonesians to get relevant skills, transition to the renewable energy, double the output of agriculture, and many things. And by the way, you should solve the problem of pollution, solve the problem of the haze, solve the problem of biodiversity, solve the problem of energy transition, and have to deal with climate change also. And by the way, the prices of rice is going to go up. if you haven't felt it. And it will continue to grow. And I don't think Indonesians are ready to give up their love for rice. Right? But with climate change, with the war in Ukraine, and every country now is becoming food nationalist. That means they don't want to export their rice. And India has just declared no more export of normal rice. No more export. Okay? And India exports 40% of the world's supply of rice. So prices would go up. Vietnam, they are thinking whether they will stop exporting or not. For now, they export. But with climate change, no more water in the Mekong, pretty soon they will stop exporting also. Thailand also. They already dry. So if these three countries, India, Thailand, Vietnam, they control 40% of the world export of rice. If they stop exporting rice, what happens to Indonesia? Food price goes up. Inflation goes up. And when inflation goes up, everything goes up. Everybody speculate. And then when inflation goes up, you have political instability. People demand action and so on. So this is the challenge. You are faced with very volatile situation out there. U.S.-China relation, when they were good, everybody happy. But when they start to fight, everybody, well, Indonesia is a big country, but you will also be affected by this conflict. So this is Indonesia now. So our goal is to move Indonesia from here to somewhere here. So your growth would be something like this. Whoops. Is that possible? 30 years, it's flat. Suddenly, you're expected to, you're being asked to go like this. Okay? Possible? Challenging? Hard work? More hard work? Or you can change the way you do things. If it's business as usual, normal business, like, okay, yeah, 5% growth, politics is here, this is what we do, and small change, yeah, I don't think you can reach that goal if you continue with your business as usual. You need a new business model. You need to reboot. And part of the rebooting requires a changing role of the bureaucracy. So, okay, let me pause on that. Any questions about this? And by the way, only in the history, in our modern history, only 13 countries, 1-3, managed to break the middle income trap. Only 1-3. So Indonesia is trying to join this club. And most of them are not big countries. And Indonesia is faced with many challenges of resource curse. I think you know resource curse. You study in high school resource curse. It's a blessing, but it's also a curse. But there are also other countries that managed to break free from resource curse. Chile, Canada, Norway, Australia. Big countries, they broke away from resource curse. They're so dependent on resources, but they managed to use the resource to diversify the economy. Saudi Arabia is now trying to break from this resource curse by using their public investment fund, this is the wealth fund, to diversify the economy on tourism, manufacturing, reform the bureaucracy, increase more Umrah and Hajj traffic, be friends with Iran, their mortal enemy. Pretty soon they will have a handshake with Israel. Very practical. They said, the geopolitics we set aside, our goal is to diversify the economy. And they change their economic model, and they're also changing the structure of the bureaucracy. Okay? I have more than 300, probably more, Saudi officials who have attended my course, and I also learned a lot from them. One of them said, I asked them, so how did the Saudi government change its bureaucracy? Because if you read the news, Saudi launched its Vision 2030 in 2016. Okay? In 2016. And their leader, Mohammed bin Salman, is only 36 years old. 36. And when he launched this, you can, in 2016, that would be about 9 years ago. So he's only 26 years old when he launched this Vision 2030. Now he is officially the Prime Minister, so he now runs the government, and pretty soon he will be the de facto king. But when I go to Saudi, I'm astounded by the pace of change that they have done. Just give you an example. Before the start of reform in 2016, they had about 250 government agencies in Saudi Arabia. 250. At the start, when the reform started to pick up, they created another 400 new agencies, specialized to deliver 270 KPIs in Saudi Arabia. 270. So throughout of Saudi Arabia, the government listed down the most important KPIs, 27 top KPIs, and then another 50, and then another at the bottom. And every minister, every director, every politician is tied to one KPI. And if you do not deliver your KPI, bye-bye, finish. Okay? No negotiation, just go. Finish. I give you already, finish. No. And they don't even call you. You just find out in the evening news, you're fired. And you can check this. The information is publicly available. The dashboard, Saudi Arabia strategic something. There's a dashboard that tracks all the KPIs, and it's publicly available. Okay? So they are now under pressure. Some of you might even think that, oh, Saudi Arabia, they take it easy, they're slow, they do many things, they have a lot of vacations, something like that. No more. My Saudi Arabia friends, they work early morning, they go home at 5 in the afternoon or no, midnight, no weekend, they just work. Because if they don't work, fire. And the ministers, the top people, they only get 2 years contract. 2 years. Okay, I put you there, 2 years, your KPI. If you don't deliver, I sack you. Okay, so everybody is very, very hard at work. Very hard at work. I see this in my Saudi students, they're very stressed. Right? So that is the answer. So Saudi is also trying to diversify, and they're taking the opportunity because of this renewable energy transition, right? Electric vehicles. Saudi is now producing its own electric vehicle. But they cannot beat the Vietnamese first. The Vietnamese have started to produce. And Saudi is now trying to shift from oil and gas into renewable energy. Solar, nuclear, hydrogen, and others. So I think there's some important lessons there because Indonesia is still pretty much dependent on all these resources. But in 50 years' time, the world would already change. The demand for coal would go down, the demand for carbon, the demand for oil and gas would also come down. So what is my point? While you are trying to grow the economy of Indonesia, the world is also changing. The demand for Indonesian coal it will also go down because most countries would stop buying coal and carbon energy. So that is another challenge, right? Your demographic challenge, US-China challenge, energy renewal challenge, climate change challenge, the geopolitics, and so on. So you cannot remain in business as usual. If you remain as business as usual, you will be forever and very long time stuck in this middle income trap, and you don't realize your potential. Okay, any questions? Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir, for the opportunity. My name is Ilham. I'm from Gajah Mada University, majoring philosophy. Okay, I have a question. This maybe the problem in Indonesia. First of all, it is the bonus demography that maybe in the future we will get it. But the problem is for the young people here, it's about mental health problem, sir. And it's hard for them to survive in the company. And my question is, how Singapore governance or the university solves this problem. I think then the problem is not Indonesia. It is about the around the world, like the mental is. Thank you for the
No.
opportunity.
Thank you very much for that important question. And it's not unique to Indonesia. A few days ago, we will have presidential election in Singapore. And the candidates met with young people in Indonesia. The first question to be asked is, what will you do with mental health issue? Right? So this is not unique. If you think about it, what's the source of mental health stress? Maybe gadget addiction, too much gadget, or you don't get a lot of likes for your Instagram or your reel, it affects your health. And then family expectation, right? Rising cost pressure, and then you see about climate change and all that. I know it. I have young children myself. They are in their early 20s. Your question is, what is Singapore doing? Officially, for the first time in the history of Singapore, the problem of mental health has been officially acknowledged by the government as a serious public health problem. Therefore, it cannot be simply put under the rug. Number one. Number two, they have increased the funding for mental health care. That it's okay to talk to a counselor, that there is help there, and they want to they stigmatize and remove the negative connotation about mental health, that it's okay to be not okay. And number three, at my university, on the first year of the university, no grades. No pressure to get grades. You can do whatever you want. Because you can imagine, maybe you can do this in Indonesia, why do you need grades in the first year? When students go to university, under pressure, right? First time, then high school, love affairs, family, adjusting with your neighbors, and then very high expectation, and then you make mistake, then you are under intense mental health pressure. You study at night, and then you cannot pass, and then your mental health suffers, right? So I would propose lifting the giving of grades on first year. Number one. Number two, all universities should have mental health counselors and facilities to help students early, not when they're already struggling. Early, catch them early and then help them. Provide counseling and advise young people that it's okay if you're struggling. You take your time off. Okay? These are just some examples, right? Number three, if you would push me further, I would tax the technology companies. You tax cigarette, right? Kretek, for public health because of cancer. The same idea. All these gadgets create public health issues. And then who pays for them? The individual and the family. We should treat this as a public health concern. And then they should also be taxed. Okay? Don't blame me, don't put me in the, maybe the technology company will blame me for, that guy. But you get the principle. You tax tobacco for the health effects. So who will pay for the mental health cost of society? Then this company should pay. Okay? I hope I answer your question. Yeah. Okay. Lila.
Okay, I'm Lila, and I live in a village, very small village with less than like 8,000 of population. We've been talking about how to drive economics in more macro level, like public investment fund, industrial scale, renewable energy transition. But what if our population or our village is like more people who graduate from primary schools? Like a lot of people who only know how to do fishing and farming for like their whole life. How to be the driver of the GDP growth if our main population is that kind of archetype? Yeah.
Right.
I'd like to ask you about that. Thank you so much.
Now, very important question. I also asked this question to my Saudi students, in other countries also, and since I've been in this business long enough and I've traveled many countries, it's the same question. Oh, we have people in the urban areas, highly educated. Then we have people in the rural areas, they are farmers, and they are not getting young. how can they help, or are they a burden on economic development? Let me tell you the story of China. When China was taking off, 260 million young Chinese moved out from villages to the cities. 260 million, like the entire population of Indonesia, moved from the provinces, rural areas, to the cities. They become the hands that work at the factory and all that. What's my point? For Indonesia to achieve Vision 2045, you need to increase the population in your urban areas. And what happens now to the farming? You would ask, right? Who will be the farmers? Everybody working in the factory and then nobody left in the farm. What happened to China was they ended up with land consolidation. Small patches of land, because they were 50, 60 years old. Nobody wants to work this plot of land anymore because not making money, right? And the young people leave their children behind to care for the elderly will care. And then the two parents would move to the city to work. This is China. Okay? So what happens now? Eventually, you will have land consolidation. You have economies of scale, more factories. And this is exactly what happened to Japan, the United States, Germany. So every country that industrializes very fast eventually have smaller number of people doing agriculture. And most of the people eventually move to the cities. Now, second solution is every farming and fishing community should have one member of the family who should graduate from the university, at least one. It can be by law, it can be by practice. In Saudi Arabia, all the poor families were identified, and the government said every family should have a university graduate or a master's degree. That is your ticket to out of poverty. Once that person graduates, have a master's degree, you work in the urban areas, then you can support the rural population. Yes, guaranteed by the state. One farmer, one fisherman, guaranteed education. Everybody. Okay? Would that work in Indonesia? Why not? Why not? Okay, I've already given you 3 practical ideas to push when you campaign, right? If you vote for me, I will promise to pass a legislation to give every farmer, every family, every fisherman, every indigenous people guaranteed university education. Right? Guaranteed. That's your way out of poverty. Okay? Yes. Hang on. Did I answer your question, Lila? More. You want to ask follow-up question? Okay, I'll come back to you. Let's start with Stevie.
Thank you for the opportunity, Professor. My name is Stevie. I'm a representative from West Java Province. So my question is about...
Stevie, how are you related to Stevie Wonder?
No,
Okay, you're
I
not
don't think
related.
so. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so my question is about a strong leadership that required by Indonesia to support the growth acceleration of the development itself towards 2045. Like, I mean, in Singapore, when Prime Minister Goh Chok Tong stated that good governance in Singapore achieved through 3 elements, like accountability, transparency, and social justice and welfare. So, I mean, like, through these 3 elements that achieved in Singapore, how we can implement in Indonesia through strong leadership, not only strong leadership, but also dynamic, innovative, and integrative leadership. I mean, like, for the next leadership of Indonesia will determine the growth acceleration of development in Indonesia. So it will achieve the status of developed countries by 2045. Thank you, Professor.
Okay, thank you, Stevie. That's a good question. Very good question. Again, Singapore is very small. No comparison with Indonesia. When Singapore was still struggling, they had strong leaders. Institutions were very weak. When Singapore became developed, they had strong institutions and still strong leaders. Okay? So you need both. The goal of the leader is to build strong institutions who can overtake him or her, and not to perpetuate just strong leadership. But when I say strong leadership, for a big country like Indonesia, you probably need to have many, many strong leaders and many, many strong institutions. Because you cannot just rely on just one. Okay? You already said no to this model of just one strong leader. You chose democracy, you chose to have institutions, accountability, you have KPK, you have the media, you have civil society. There's no returning back, right? No returning back. Although you would say, if you had asked me, if you look at history, democratic countries never grow 8-9%. Never. Okay? Only centralized, strong countries like Vietnam, China will grow 8-9% because whatever the boss says, Beijing says, let's build high-speed railway. Okay? In 3 years' time, high-speed railway finished. No right-of-way problem, no NGO, no environment. They will argue, they will debate. 3 years' time, finish. In democratic country like India, the government says, let's build high-speed train. Okay. And then the next day, NGOs go to the Supreme Court, opposition party stop, local government stop right-of-way. 10 years later, they're still arguing about the high-speed railway. So you know what I mean. So even the best democracies cannot grow beyond 5%, simply because democracy is just noisy, many competing groups, courts, many problems. It slows things down. Okay? But we cannot change your democracy simply because you want to grow to 2045. Okay? So what I'm trying to say is, at best, you can grow 5-6%. At the very best. When you have bureaucracy, local government, when everybody is working and pulling together, maybe you would be very happy with 6%. Sustained over 20 years' time. Okay? Now, Go Chok Tong is correct about, he's my boss, he's the chairman of our board. He talked about transparency, accountability, and all of that stuff. So, you have transparency in Indonesia, you have open media, you have many NGOs. The social media here is very, very active in the world. In fact, too active. It's in fact very, very active, which is good. Yeah. Yeah. Some people ask me, Prof, how can we be good leaders in this age of social media? Everything that we do, we are under the spotlight. Even if I don't do anything good, I will look bad. Or my opposition will troll me and make me look bad. My advice is, this is an American saying. They say, the dogs will bark, but the caravan will move on. Okay? The dogs will bark and the caravan moves on. There will always be opposition. There will always be barking. There will always be trolling. There will always be opposition. The key is, let them bark. I do my work. You press on. You continue. Okay? You agree? Agree? You're very weak. Agree. Not sure. But once you suffer criticism, tell me if you agree. Once you are put in the spotlight of Kampanyang Hitam, I know, there's trolling. Your opponents will organize black campaign for you until you give up, right? Anyway, that's social media. But what can you do? There's democracy, there's social media, and you choose. It's by your choice. You wanted to become political leader. Nobody forced you to do this. Right? So, as the saying goes, if you cannot take the heat in the kitchen, you better get out. So the kitchen will become very hot once you become political leaders. It will become very hot. Then let's see who will be able to stay and survive inside the kitchen. And you still see, do I really want to stay in this job? So you ask yourself, wow, what's in it for me? Why am I doing this? Is it, I want the money, I want reputation, I want prestige, or I want to do something, or I don't care whatever they say, I just want to serve. Right? Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's okay.
Thank you very much, Professor, for this opportunity. My name is Nurul Aisyah Turida. I come from South Kalimantan, the island where is the new capital city will be located. Yes.
I have been to Kalimantan Barat, the other
IKN.
one.
Oh yeah.
The other
I'm
side,
from
okay.
South Kalimantan. I want to ask about the energy sustainability, energy policy sustainability, and the human resources. Because in most provinces in Kalimantan, we mostly supported by the coal, energy, natural gas, and so on.
Okay.
But in the 10 or 20 years from now, it can be supported as.
What happens to the people who
Yes,
depend on coal and oil and gas?
Yes. In other hand, we don't have enough good institution, institution, education facility in Kalimantan. So, sorry, I have to say that. To say this, most people come to our island and then work in Kalimantan, but our local human resources, we don't have enough opportunity to work in the IKN or something. So do you have any suggestion or yes, overview to overcome this? Thank you very much.
No, thank you. That is a very important question. People talk about energy transition, like when will it happen? But it will happen eventually. The question is when. Okay? The answer to that question is it's happening very quickly. As I would say we will reach a tipping point some time around 2050 in about 30 years time when there will be more and more people using or more countries using renewable energy than the traditional energy. This year we already had a tipping point. There were more investments in renewable energy compared to conventional energy. So the short answer is you have about 30 years before you reach the tipping point. But this 30 years can move faster. How? It can be 20 years. How? One is the United States will stop buying oil and gas because they just transitioned to green. And the Europeans also the same. They just transition into renewable energy like nuclear. So the demand for your coal would still go to maybe India or Africa, but definitely the coal prices would collapse because the demand is going down. And China, your biggest market, they also have a goal to transition to renewable energy. They cannot stay on coal forever for many reasons. One is it's heavy polluting. It's as bad as you have here in Jakarta when you go to Beijing or other cities. So they don't want coal forever. Pretty soon, China will start reducing its coal. Right now, I think there are about 30% renewable, but eventually they want to move towards renewable. That means within this period, the demand for your coal would eventually go down. Okay, that's first part. Second part is what to do with your human resources that are dependent on this. Don't mention this, right? Yeah. You can tax the coal companies to invest in university education to retrain the people while there's still time, right? Anyway, they make a lot of money already. Time to distribute, reinvest in people, and reinvest in people who will support renewable energy. And Indonesia is very lucky. You're still sitting on lithium, nickel, the energy resources needed for the new economy. But who is preparing for the next generation of workers for the next economy? That maybe people, companies that benefited from the old economy should start to invest in the new economy. Government should work to build something like, I don't know if you have the same like what they have in the Philippines, Technical Education and Skills Development Authority. This is vocational training. It's been around for 50 years now. And this is the agency that provides technical, practical training to Filipinos. And that is why there's 10 million Filipinos who live and work abroad. not the highest, but now they have upgraded the curriculum now to include cybersecurity, data analytics, and all the stuff. Not just the very simple skills, including automotive. Now, the world is quickly changing. Pretty soon, most people will be buying electric vehicles. How many workers do you have in Indonesia who knows how to fix an electric vehicle? Very few. How many people do you have who knows how to handle green hydrogen? Probably zero. How many cybersecurity experts do you have in, not even the high one, but lower one? What I'm sure your ministers have thought about this. These are the job requirements of the future. How many do you have for Indonesia? And what are you going to do to produce this supply of workers? So while you still have time, my advice would be, I think, Minister of Education or another agency to be created to focus on these new skills. Yeah. Okay. Would that help? Of course, tourism is another lifeline for Indonesia. I like the example of Thailand. Tourism accounts for more than 25% of Thailand's GDP. 25%. Indonesia, I think it's about 13%. You can do more. You can do more. So you can retrain your young people to go into tourism. But tourism requires speaking in English language, right? And customer service. So should you require more English training now for younger generation? Because language will not go away. You can lose your skill, but your language, you can move on to different industries. Your skill may be lost because of technology, but your language can always get you another job in Indonesia or multinational, or you can go to other countries and work, right? So again, my last advice is think about this idea of increasing the language proficiency of younger Indonesians so that they will be more, they have advantage when it comes to the labor market. Okay? Is my answer okay with you? All right? Thank you. At the back, please. Amelia, please.
Okay. Test. Okay. Thank you, Prof. I'm Amelia from Yogyakarta. The welfare expenditure budget is the key to increasing GDP because it is an investment in human resources. How does Singapore manage its welfare budgets, especially with fully non-extractive resources and capitalistic economic?
How do we manage our welfare
Expenditure budget?
Okay. Welfare expenditure budget is the biggest item in the government budget next to defense budget. So welfare budget includes healthcare, education, housing, social welfare for the poor, and all of that. There is what we call social contract, an agreement between the ruling party, PAP, and the voters of Singapore that the government will always look after the welfare of Singaporeans. So if you lose your job, if you lose your home, the government will help you find a home. If you lose your job, the government will help you find a job. Again, because Singapore is small, right? If you become homeless in Singapore, it's by choice, not by circumstance. There's some homeless people, but they live in the beach, but they have a choice. Okay? So for welfare expenditure, the most important one would be education. Because education will free you from poverty, you have upward mobility, then you create jobs and so on. Because Singapore has no natural resources, only human resources. But we are worried. We are worried. By 2030, in 7 years' time, 1 out of 3 Singaporeans would be 60 years old and above. So we become very old. Not actually very old, super old. Imagine 1 out of 3 Singaporean would be 60 and above. And because the healthcare is very good, Singaporean women die at 85. You retire 60, you die 85. That means you have 25 years not working, not contributing to taxes. Then you get sick, you go to the hospital. government looks after you. So it becomes a heavy burden to society. Okay? And that will happen to Indonesia in 10 years' time when you have more, when your demographic curve shifts and there will be more older people to support than there are young workers to support. So the conclusion to your question is your welfare budget should anticipate this aging population, should prepare for this. What does it mean for public transport? What does it mean for healthcare? What does it mean for public security? What does it mean for city government? You should have more old age friendly public transport, like the buses that where you can bring your wheelchair, right? Your pedestrian walking should be good for elderly people. Your housing should have facilities to cater to the old people, right? So again, that's another suggestion. It will come. So I think there's no reason why for you not to prepare. So while you're trying to increase your GDP to 7 trillion, you still have to worry about your problems about the farmers, poverty, losing job, and then the elderly like this. And your social welfare budget should be able to cater to the needs of these groups, because there's no point of having a large economy when most of the people are poor and they don't feel the benefit, and only the people from the cities feel the benefit. Then that's not a sustainable society. And I don't think you want that society where you can say, oh, we've become the number 5 economy in the world, but our poverty is still high, and then people are still poor, and the farmers are still struggling. People will say, so what's the point of all of this when the welfare of the population does not improve? Okay? So remember, growth should be accompanied by redistribution, welfare. If there's one message you should take away from me, growth plus redistribution, equitable redistribution. Redistribution in the provinces, redistribution between gender, redistribution between senior and young people, redistribution between different ethnic groups. Then you could you don't need to grow 7%. You can grow 5% and then you redistribute the benefits fairly. Then you would say that you have achieved your 100 years of vision for Indonesia, when the welfare of most of the people have improved over time. Okay? And does that answer your question? Yes.
Thank you, Prof. My name Arif Mabuhay. That's all I know. That's all I know from Tagalog. My question is still about Singapore.
Yes.
We know Singapore one of the famous about clean governments, but recent time we have heard news about scandals from the ministers and even the member of parliament. We know even the affairs, private affairs from them. If news come from Indonesia or the other developing countries, it's maybe we heard days, but in Singapore it's so rare. I mean, in 10 years is maybe no such news like that, and this happened. I think there is more than 2 ministers involved in these scandals. The question that I want to ask is about why this happened, and from your perspective and from the Singaporean perspective, what kind of they think about this kind of scandals happen in there, and for Indonesian, I want to ask about what can I learn and what kind of aspect that we need to uphold, this kind of things that we can uphold to keep government, governments. And the last one is how to handle this kind of. So here in Indonesia we have the same problem too. So how we can handle it? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's a very tricky question. The first question is why this happen, and what lessons can Indonesia learn from that? I agree with you. In other countries, this is a normal thing. In the news, people don't pay attention. In Singapore, this is not normal. So when it happened, everybody was shocked. So shocked. My answer is why? It's a human nature. It's human organization, right? And there are some people do certain things and they make mistake. So these are two examples of mistakes. No perfect system. Whenever people are in charge, there's no perfect system. People will make mistakes, violate this and violate that, hoping that they will not be caught. But they were caught, which is the strength of the system. And when they were caught, the government really openly admitted it. They did not put it underground or did not hide it. They acknowledged it. And the Prime Minister said, even if it is very embarrassing to the party, embarrassing to the government, they will have to deal with it because that is the way to go. And he said, and also it's not systemic, it's not everything, it's not every day, it's not the whole system. Occasionally you have these problems that come. And when they do come, the government will really enforce the law. Okay? Your next question, what lesson can Indonesia learn from Singapore? The Singapore story is generic. Most countries, a lot of governments send people to Singapore to learn about how they fight corruption. It's not really rocket science. The formula is simple. One, you have an independent anti-corruption agency, very independent. In the case of Singapore, reports directly to the president. If the prime minister is corrupt, then the president can have the agency investigate. No one is above the law. That is in Singapore. No one is above the law. The president, the prime minister, the chief justice, or everybody, you will be investigated. Number two, if you go to the website of the KPK of Singapore, it's called CPIB, you will notice one thing. In the logo, they say swift and sure. Swift and sure. That means swift investigation, sure prosecution. They will swiftly investigate you and they will guarantee 100% prosecution. So people will be, oops, I think twice before I do, because they will find out and then I will be investigated. So you plant fear in the heart of the people, and especially for the high-level ministers. Okay? We still have corruption in Singapore, small one, commercial. It's not just political, but also commercial. When commercial companies bribe ministers to do that, they're also investigated, right? Another one is leadership by example. And not just leadership by example. The reason why Singapore ministers and the Prime Minister of Singapore and their top civil servants get a high salary is so that they're not tempted to accept bribe. Okay? No need to accept bribe because your salary is already very high. And our salary in Singapore is what we call clean wages, clean. Clean means no housing allowance, no rice allowance, no allowance for the children. What they give you, that's it. No extra. No extra work. Okay? So clean wages, independent anti-corruption agency. Whistleblowing, you know here it's very common, right? And also, the law in Singapore says, if you don't blow the whistle and we find out, you are also equally guilty. So now, if suddenly I learn something about corruption, my incentive is to blow the whistle. Because if I don't blow the whistle, I'm also guilty. It can be the driver, it can be the accountant, it can be the secretary. It's your duty to blow the whistle. If not, you will also be in trouble. So it's better to just blow the whistle. Okay? Now, again, Singapore is small, Indonesia large, KPK capability limited, and you have to investigate everybody. So it will take time. And sometimes people think that, if the money I get is 1 trillion rupiah and the probability of being caught is 2%, maybe I should accept. But if the probability is 50%, even if 1 trillion rupiah, I will think twice. So the key is to increase the probability of being reported, caught, and prosecuted. Okay? Increase the probability through citizens, local government, auditor, law, whistleblowing, procurement reforms, focus on agencies that are vulnerable to corruption like customs, infrastructure, local government, In the Philippines, most corruption cases are done by local government. Why? You ask me why? Because they say, oh, I invested heavily to win the election. Now I have to pay back my investment. How does it work? I know this. I used to work in local government in the Philippines, and I help politicians also. So the way it works is, in the Philippines, it's money politics. Yeah? Every time election, politicians pay, coffee money. But coffee money has now increased because now there's digital money. Voters ask for this amount, and then the voter will send a picture to another politician and say, hey, I got this money, 1 million rupiah from this politician. What do you say? So the other politician also under pressure to send digital money. Then he will go to the third politician. So the cost of getting elected is very high. Okay, number one. And every local official in the Philippines the term is only 3 years, one term. And you have 3 terms, that means 9 years total. 9 years total. So what do? You are entering many of you are entering politics for the first time. In the Philippines, I don't know here in Indonesia, in the Philippines, the politician will go to his friend. Usually the contractor or the hardware supplier. Say, hey, brother, I'm running for office. I think I'm going to win, but I don't have the money. Can you lend me some money now? And then I pay you back with 30%, 40% profit after I win. All projects of the city government, I give to you. So, very good, right? 30% profit already. So if I'm the supplier, I would think, I look at the survey, I think he's going to win, and if he wins, I get all the business. This is the very common business model. Okay? I hope none of you would get into this business model. But anyway, 10 more minutes, okay. Okay, I have to wind up in 10 more minutes. Anyway, I've answered some question to you. So I can take a few more questions within 10 minutes. So I think we're now back to... Oh, here. Ladies first. Sorry, I cannot see you here. Sorry.
Thank you for chance me for give the question. Actually, this is like sharing the problem me. Actually, thank you so much for give me chance the question. Actually, I really want to hopeless because I'm saying, but finally, my name is Wawa. I'm from West Kalimantan, and I'm a teacher. Actually, this is the question correlation about the economy. I think Indonesian people have the problem with the language, especially with English language. We cannot to telling to other word. We cannot to telling to people on tourism. Actually, this is a really good chance if we can speak English better. But the problem is we cannot to telling to the world. This is Indonesia. This is the tourist. This is the good place in Indonesia because we cannot speak English. And actually, I really cannot to confidence to telling about this. But I'm as a teacher, I must make my student know about the English. But they cannot to confidence. But how to Indonesia can be better in 2045 if we still have the human and they don't have capability, they don't have skill on English.
how we can to telling the word about the Indonesian. So maybe you can give suggestions, especially for candidate here, maybe how to improve our English and to be confident to telling about this word. Thank you so much for this chance. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Wawa. I'm not American. I don't think my English education in public school was very good. I just learned by myself, watching Sesame Street. That's how I learned. I don't think I'm impressed by the way English was taught in my classroom. I don't remember any, no. I learned by listening, talking. When you're a child and you are exposed by people who speak English, or you watch TV, you hear it, you eventually pick it up. So education really is just a additional thing. And I think young people, if you expose them to this environment, English speaking, at least in my school, in my days, if you speak the local language, they penalize you. So I'm forced to pretend to speak English quietly, but that's how I learned English. And just forced to read English texts. I don't remember my mother telling me to study English, not at all. My mother, we're 6 in the family, she's so busy. My father was so busy. I just said, okay, I want to study English. So what is my point? You motivate young people early enough to see the advantage of speaking English. Once they see that, they will teach by themselves. They're on the phone anyway, most of the time, right? The only thing that the school adds is you are forced to take the examination. So they test whether you are good in English or not. Okay? Number one. Number two, with ChatGPT, you don't need to have perfect English. ChatGPT can give you the perfect memo, and you don't need to speak very good English, but you can translate. Okay? The key is practice, 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 practice. That's all. I don't know if I was helpful, but I do think if you're the owner of a university, I would recommend that you include this English language curriculum, even if the Ministry of Education does not push it for you. You give extra classes to. I say this because the 10 million Filipinos who live and work in the Philippines, that's their main skill. It's not the technical skill, but the language skill. If you have the language skill, you can work anywhere in the world. You can work in the Chinese company, in the Korean company, and your salary would be very high. So better invest in English language because the returns would be very high. Okay? Last question.
Okay, thank you, Professor. Actually, I want to say sorry that I will bring the topic back to the early one. Previously, you're telling us about there's around 261 million people of Chinese that move to the cities while the country is taking off. And then now I would like to ask you about how we should control and handle our urbanization in the next 50 or 20 years. In terms of economic, demographic, and geographic challenges that we had. We have archipelagic, we are an archipelagic nation, a lot of islands that may make us, that may be difficult for us, but I want tips for you. And I have another question actually, is it enough for us to focusing our resources to develop the Nusantara new capital cities? In your opinion, actually, of course. And the last question is, what is the most important challenge that Singapore already passed in terms of handling urbanization that you can share with us?
Handling urbanization.
Yes, because you previously said that Singaporean had around 2 million people that foreigners. Yeah. If I'm correct, would you share to us about that also? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I can see because you are from Jakarta, right? So this is a relevant question about urbanization and migration all of that stuff. Good question. Take the case of China. 20 years ago, there were only a few cities that are big. Beijing, Shanghai, maybe a little bit of Shenzhen. Today, China has so many cities, and all cities are connected by high-speed rail. So that's the answer to your first question. You need rail connectivity, mass transport, so that people don't have to live in the big city, so that they can stay in another city, and then they commute by a high-speed rail. Okay? So you solve the problem of limited physical space in that city by creating this mass transport. And I think Indonesia started this mass transport already. So you need to build more mass transport to connect the big cities to one another. That's one. Your question about archipelago, I come from Philippines. We have 7,000 islands. You have 17,000, double. It's not a problem because airline is very cheap. There are many boats that cross. So it's no longer a physical barrier for people to move. And moving people is not a bad idea. If they move from rural areas to urban areas, that means the value that they create is probably higher than when they stay as a farmer. And there will be more opportunities for them. And all countries develop via urbanization, not by keeping their agriculture, improve the productivity of agriculture, have economies of scale, but you cannot and should not prevent rural people to move to the cities. That's what's happening now to Indonesia. And I remember your transmigration project in the 1960s because of so much pressure now. You don't need to do that if you have a lot of other work options, remote work, for example, digital work. So not everybody can have to go to the big cities also. And in the case of, you asked a question about Singapore, the government provided public housing. Once you solve the problem of public housing, which is the biggest cost item for all people, right? Once you solve that, then you provide some kind of stability to the people. And they will work very hard because they have public house, they already have housing. And there's hope for them, right? That's why Singapore is very boring city. No rallies, no young people upgrading, no worker union doing this. Why? 90% of people own their house. 98% have jobs. Why bother, right? Because everybody's busy making money and good jobs for everybody. There's no need to do this, right? And your last question about Nusantara. What do I think? I like the idea. Putrajaya is a role model. Saudi Arabia is creating the largest city you can imagine, 9 million people, Neom city in the line near Tabuk, near the border with Egypt and Jordan and Israel. It's ambitious as Nusantara, and I think it's bold, it's ambitious. The main challenge that I think is chicken and egg. Investors will see, they will not put their money now, they say, I'm interested, but I will wait because it requires a lot of money. That means the government budget has to pay for most before the investors will come, if they will come. Now, if climate change gets worse and Jakarta starts to flood and there will be more migration, with climate change, more migrants coming from the rural areas move to Jakarta and city, right? And Jakarta would not be livable city anymore. And then maybe investors will think, yeah, it's time to go to Nusantara. But you might not be able to hit your target. No big projects finish on time. No big projects finish on budget. There will always be a problem. Okay? But since you already started, the dogs will bark, the caravan moves on. So thank you very much. I think that's all for today. Yep.
So, keren ya, banyak belajar dari pengalaman-pengalaman luar negeri. We learned a lot from experience from diverse countries, and give a big round of applause if we should invite Prof. Ed again to the next Young Political Leaders Training.
Actually, I prefer to come back to Jakarta than to Riyadh. It takes me one whole day to go to Riyadh, and it's very long and it's very hot. Yeah, here it's just two hours, and I love Indonesian food.
Thank you very much. So Professor Ed will be our regular teacher for the young political programs. Yes, agree? Kak Putri, agree. Thank you very much, Kak Putri. So we are out of time, and our next speaker will be here soon, and he's a very prominent speaker, former chairman of Golkar. So I will end this session and give it back to our MC, Mas Rifki. Thank you very much.
Oke. Terima kasih. Baru saja kita mendengarkan public lecture dengan tema Good Governance for Golden Indonesia 2045. Selanjutnya kita masih menunggu. Oke. Baik, akhirnya sampailah kita di penghujung acara pada sore hari ini. Namun ini merupakan awal rangkaian acara Executive Education Program for Young Political Leaders angkatan ke-13 yang akan berlangsung setiap harinya mulai hari ini hingga tanggal 2 September nanti. Mewakili Golkar Institute, saya mengucapkan terima kasih kepada seluruh undangan, Dewan Pembina dan Pengawas, dan pengurus yang telah hadir. Mohon maaf apabila ada salah-salah kata. Sekali lagi semangat. Kepada seluruh peserta angkatan ke-13, saya Rifki pamit undur diri, sampai jumpa. Mohon hadirin kesediaannya untuk berfoto bersama-sama.
Ya, yang dari sisi sebelah sana kita gabung ke sini, biar semua masuk dalam satu frame, tetap di tempat duduknya masing-masing aja. Ya, cuman yang kursinya bisa digeser, agak geser menuju ke tengah aja. Agak geser menuju ke tengah.
Teman-teman yang hari ini duduk di sana nggak usah khawatir, besok akan bertukar. Ganti-gantian.
Masih sama ya Mas Razi, setiap harinya akan diacak ya kursinya.
Teman-teman, mohon atensinya, kita bisa toilet sebentar, ada coffee break, take your time, like 15 minutes I think, while we're waiting for Pak Abu Rizal Bakri, tapi mohon untuk kita tertib dan menghargai Pak ARB yang pertama kali ini, batch pertama teman-teman ngerasain session with Pak ARB. So, kita datang tepat waktu ya, 10 sampai 15 menit. Terima kasih teman-teman.